Hello there, I'm going to talk about We Own the City, the new HBO miniseries by David Simon that's just come out, and you can get it on various streaming platforms. It's a really terrific TV show, all about Baltimore police and corruption that's taken place, that's recently took place in their special tactical unit. But as with David Simon, a lot of it's to do with institutions. A lot of it's to do with how institutions deals with problems or doesn't deal with them, and how things are left to rot, and how things are slowly get corrupted and messed about just by the way things work in life. It's about how things work in life rather than how we like things to work in life. A lot of shows and films about how we like things to work, and act as if that's how they work, rather than now they actually work much more dysfunctionalness, and that's why there's so many problems. I mean, David Simon's one of those guys who does tons of research. He's notorious for, if you ever go into his office during a project, there's piles and piles of research just piled up, and I've read all of it, and it's like all the details, they try and get as clear as possible. So even if they do like composite characters, like they do for one of the characters here, it's based on certain people, and it just makes it easy for the drama to get from A point A to point B without actually creating like really awkward drama. Some people do composite characters, they actually are very careful how they portray them. But basically, this is about the police. This is that David Simon going back to the police, because it covered the police and homicide, which was turned into Homicide Life in the Streets. So there was a book turned into a TV show. I've done a video on the TV show. The TV show's terrific. Then they did The Wire. We did a corner in The Wire, and The Wire is viewed as one of the great TV shows of the 2000s, along with Sopranos and Deadwood. Those were like the big three in the early 2000s. Those are the ones like, which one's the best one? And you choose, you know. So it was that thing, and then it moved on to what's the best one, you know, the next slot, like Mad Men things. So it's always what's the best one. Whatever's new and is good, so that's always the best one. You know, because it has to be the best one because the current critics are covering it. You know, that's how they define the best one. How do we prove ourselves by saying we're living the best period? You know. So The Wire was terrific. It's all about the mix of drugs and police work, then drugs and how the drugs come into the country, and drugs and how do the institutions and politically not stop them, and then how does the next generation come through, and how was it not reported properly. So it's the idea of taking drugs and then expanding out and out and out and out and out. So you can see how complicated that is far beyond the point of some people take drugs. It's like the distribution of them, and it's like all the different social ladders that take you to the drug problem. Now this goes back to the police and how they deal with the drug war in the 10 years after The Wire has been released. And it's not a pretty sight. It's a sight of the police being corrupted by the need to make their tally, their arrest records, to get their funding properly. How basically the actual good police work is ruined by the drug war because you need to be arrests. So a lot of the drug arrests are suspect and they don't stick, and they create distrust with people, so no one is ever going to come forward with information about any murder because they distrust the police so much because they know it's a scam. And it's all about how that corruption is taking place in the police department, and how his most extreme versions is they do not back up the citizenry against obviously racist and corrupt policemen. They do not back up the citizenry in any possible way. They back up the police, the unions back up the police, and there's no accountability unless something's so obviously wrong that they can't ignore it anymore. And this is what happens here. This is like a task force which is viewed as the big task force that gets a lot of drug arrests and a lot of getting the big cases, but it turns out they're corrupt and they've been sourcing selling on the drugs they take. When they take on when they take down something, they keep some for themselves all the time, everyone gets a share. It's just a brutally corrupt system. And it goes on for years and years and builds until this one guy takes it so far they can't ignore it anymore. And that guy's played by John Bernthal. But you get a lot of his other characters, all these other characters around him. You get actors like Josh Charles and Jimmy Hector, who you might not know the name, but once you see them, you'll know the face. Those kind of actors who, there's actors from like The Wire who are 10 years older, and it's like, that's the same guy from The Wire, but he looks very different now. There's lots of stuff like that as well. I mean, one of the drug dealers from the entirety of The Wire when he was a young guy is now a cop in this one. And it's like, wait, that's the same guy? Wow. You know, there is that. There's that kind of thing, which you get a lot in David Simon stuff. He likes to reuse certain actors. Because if an actor's good, he wants to use them again. But he doesn't use any of the iconic actors. The actors like Idris Elba or Dominic West from the UK or Clark Peters or something like that. He doesn't use them in this one. He uses like other actors. He would use smaller actors from The Wire. And he would use other bigger actors. Because I think it'd be a case of it would be too much like a Wire reunion that way. So instead he brings in other actors. So John Bernthal, he actually plays the lead character, and you actually see, it's not a spoiler he gets caught, because you find out in the first episode he's getting caught. But it's like how he gets caught is a big thing, and it's how the corruption takes place. It's not about, oh my god, he get caught. It's like, how did this continue for so long? How did he get set down this path? Because it goes back and forward in time, and it's slowly showing you what he was taught in the academy, which is completely ignored when you go on the streets. Why is it ignored? How is it ignored? How can you adjust to make the cases your way? How does the corruption slowly ebb into other departments? How does it make it hard for decent cops to actually make a living and make cases, because the corruption of these awful cops and awful institutions? And how are the politicians involved? Because you find out that it takes place during a case of one mayor's going out and they've just given up, and a new mayor's coming in, and a new mayor's going to make all these changes, and then you find out at the end that this new mayor, a few months later, is arrested for corruption, as well as her, assistant. And it's just like this layer and layer of corruption and tax avoidance and all the rest of it, and how people are just avoiding paying their way and just doing the bare minimum to get what they want, and it's just horrific. I mean, there's so much of every kind of crime in this, on every level of the ladder. It's like, it's amazing anything happens. It's amazing anything in a race is made, because it's so stacked against making good arrests. It's just so corrupt and just a waste of energy for most people. And that's what it creates a feeling in the populace that's a waste of time trying to deal with this, because the police are so obviously corrupt. And you might get lucky, you might get a good one, but what are the chances there? Because a good chance if you get pulled over, you're going to be one of the really horrible ones who is going to ruin your life or just because in a bad mood. Because they're the the badge, they can say what they want. And they'll try to push through having given every police officer a recording thing so they can see what actually happened. And because of the city's budget, it's not going to happen. And no matter how many commissioners go through and say, we need this, it's not going to happen. And each police commissioner is pretty much a case of, I'll be here for a year and they're going to fire me. And as soon as I'm getting anywhere close to doing what I want to do, I'll be fired. And so what's the point? And even their assistants are tied to corruption as well. And it's like, it's not like choosing an uncorrupt person to help you. It's like try to choose the least corrupt person to help you. It's just that's the kind of system they're showing. And a lot of this is explained to a person investigating, political investigator, who's trying to push through reforms. And she's going through the system, talking to people, trying to do a report, and that's where you get a lot of the explanation dumps. But because of David Simon, he does a lot of really cool stuff. He has a lot of people explaining things really quickly, but it gets to the point really fast. Like, there's all this talk about why this is the way, and then this person comes in and saying, this is why it's this way. and because he's built up all the layers before you get to those scenes, it's always like a case of how do I build up the layer before I get to the point. So he builds the layers up through seeing the characters at work and on various departments, and then when he gets to the person being the point, it's like he's built up so much he doesn't have to explain everything. You've really got the gist of everything. You can know why they're saying this, so you don't just have to go on for like 3 hours. You can do it all in about 5 minutes because he explained everything so well just by the drama. And that's what's really good with the film. It's a drama. Even though John Bernthal is the lead character, it's an ensemble piece. He's the lead focus. He's the lead villain. He's the guy who's going to go down. But you're watching his development. But he's not the main point. He's just a product of this corrupt system. So it's inevitable it's going to get to someone like him, who was very much a go-getter, someone who was out for himself. It's just all you needed was someone like that to get into the wrong position, and then all hell was going to break loose because the system was set up that way. And there was anybody who was meant to be watching over and saying, "No, you can't do that." They weren't doing that. They were as corrupt as the people they were overseeing. So the whole show is only 6 episodes, but it's just about the constant corruption, the constant mess, and just the sense of futility. And like, how do you get beyond that? How do you pull back and create a decent police force? And it's all about, well, the drug war escalated things. The drug war is actually a ridiculous thing that's causing issues. Just create arrests for something that's a health problem and an economic problem. It's become a crime problem that has unbalanced the whole police work, really. And there's all budgeting problems too. That all tied to what people want to have their names tied to in a budget to say, look, we did best we could. So you've got these like politicians that try to be progressive, but they're just trying to put their names towards things that so they say, I did something, very minor, but I did something, I tried. And you've got all these people who are in that class, the overclass, who are all making big salaries and throwing through a few little schemes that might be ignored within a year, but they're getting paid a lot of money for it. So this is another scam, another corruption. So even the people who are meant to be helping from afar, from Washington, coming in to help, even there's a scam. So there's a scam within a depressed city or a depressed area. It's just how does the various scams go on from the police all the way up to the politicians, and that's what the story's about. So even though it's called We Own This City, and the prime thing is about the corrupt police, it goes all the way further up because David Simon, he's not going to just stick at the police. So that's a wonderful show. I'd highly recommend seeing it. It's funny as hell too. I mean, I'm explaining the themes, but it's not as didactic as that mostly. Mostly it's funny and dark and horrific at times. And there's some wonderful drama. But it is a kind of thing of, first episode they get caught. It's like, how do they get caught, and how much damage they're going to do to other people before they go down, and that's what you have to watch. So, and what damage they're doing to themselves, and how a lot of them just cannot get out of this corrupt system. It's like, well, they're stuck in this horrible system. So, so just go see it. It's wonderful. It's really wonderful. So that's me for now. I'll be back soon with some more later on.